I'm going to be talking about the 3 most important ways to look after the surface of your silver whilst you're working on it. My name is Andrew Berry and welcome to At the Benches YouTube channel. When we order silver in from the bullion dealers here in the UK, when it comes to sheet especially, we always have this blue protective plastic always on both sides of the sheet. Comes in plastic bags, it'll always have this blue sheet on it. It comes in a strip, it'll always have this blue plastic on it. Now it's there for a reason. It is there to protect the surface. Admittedly, when the silver comes from the bullion dealers, it's not necessarily a high shine, but it's a smooth, it's a clean and unblemished surface, and that's the way the silver needs to stay for as long as possible. So you've got your design. How do you transfer your design onto your silver? Don't remove the blue plastic layer to stick a label onto it with your design. Don't remove the plastic layer and roughen the surface up to put a bit of white paint on it to trace your pattern through some, what's it called? It's that carbon paper, that's it. Keep it on the silver for as long as possible. It is there to protect the silver. If you happen to mark the plastic, it doesn't mark the silver. And don't forget, for every mark that you put onto that silver, you have to get out. It may take only a second with a tool, or you may accidentally scrape it with a scribe. It may take a fraction of a second to mark the silver, but I guarantee you it is going to take you minutes, perhaps even hours, to get that mark out of the piece of silver so it is completely blemish free. Keep it on as long as possible. As you can see here, we've got a piece of silver sheet. We have stamped out some discs. Leave the paper on it. So you want to work with it. Work with the paper, the plastic, on the actual bit of silver. You can do so much with it. You can put it into your doming block like this. You can then get your hammer. You can start to hammer, to dome the bit of silver. The plastic is there to protect the surface, protect the outside, protect the inside from the doming block, from the doming punches, from marks. It is there for a reason. But I know what you're saying, but you do actually have to work on the piece. You have to perhaps anneal the piece. Okay, yes, remove the actual plastic paper then. But you can still take precautions to protect the surface of the silver. Fire scale. Everybody hates fire scale. It's a fire stain, fire scale, whatever you want to call it. It's slightly different meanings, but it means there's going to be an oxide on the surface. And it is there when you heat up the piece with a torch. It is oxygen that has been absorbed into the surface. Now again, you have to protect that surface, not from scratches this time, but from the oxygen from the torch. So you can't use a barrier like a bit of plastic. The plastic's going to burn. So what are you going to use? Very, very simply, you can use some borax. You can use some flux. You can use some fire scoff. You can use whatever you want. Flux is an ideal medium. You can paint that over the surface. Now, I've just removed the plastic piece off this bit of metal, and I know that when you put then the borax or the flux on the surface, you can see it pulls up. Okay, the surface isn't clean. There's a bit of grease, there's a bit of oil on the surface, there's a bit of sticky from that blue plastic. So what you do, no, you don't go over it with a piece of emery paper because you're ruining the surface. Remember, if you've gone over the piece with a piece of emery paper, you've got to polish it back, but the piece is nice and clean. So what you do, you get your torch, tweezers, always handy, warm up the piece gently. Now remember I said, if you're going to work on it, you need to protect the surface, but I'm just gently warming the surface enough so when it goes into the acid, you'll hear that little bit of a tst. And in fact, make sure you do remove the plastic from the other side as well, otherwise you're going to have plastic burnt onto the silver. Should have prepared that a bit better, shouldn't I? In the 30 plus years I've been doing this, I still make mistakes. Okay, I've touched it. We need to heat that up again. I should have taken the plastic off both sides. Right, warm it up just enough just to enable that bit of silver when it goes into the acid to go a little bit. There we go. Don't touch that bit of silver. It is now gorgeous and clean. There is no oils on it. There is no nothing on it. No grease, no nothing. So now when we come to put our borax onto the surface, the borax will cover the whole surface, no problems at all. That now is our barrier to stop the oxygen being absorbed into the surface. Because don't forget, fire scale, it is a bugger to try and get out of the silver. It attacks, it goes into that very, very top layer of silver, the stain, the oxide, and you have to remove it. So you have to physically abrade it, file it, buff it. Then you've got to go back and polish it. So it's more effort and more work. Always take care to protect that surface. Now, when we heat this up, you can see the borax now is coated the surface. If it hasn't coated the surface enough, go back over, protect that surface. Now, the surface is protected. The piece of silver will heat up. You can anneal it. Perhaps you may want to solder on it as well. Now I can be sure that that surface now is going to be protected from the oxides. It's going to be protected from the oxygen from the flame, and I know that I won't get any fire scale on that little bit of silver because I have taken measures to protect it. So there we go, into the acid. And the action of putting it into the acid removes the borax, the covering as well. There are lots of ways you can use. You can use fire scuff, you can use magic pickle, magic borax, or there's so many proprietary products out there. I just simply use a flux, much easier. So there we go, we've heated it up. You can see we've still got a lovely, gorgeous surface. So the third way now, so we need to carry on working with this, and perhaps we've gone through every stage of when we're working it, we've soldered it, we've protected the surface up until the soldering stage with the plastic film. We've taken the plastic film off, we've protected the surface with the flux to make sure there's no scale on it. Now we're going to carry on working with it. So you need to protect the surface again, but we've already taken off the plastic sheet. So what are we going to do? A couple of ways we can do that now. We can use a nice cloth, put that over our peg, just like that. That will protect the silver when we're working on it, because don't forget, your peg is the center of your universe. Everything happens on the peg. As you can see, we've got little holes in here. There's bits of lemon, there's bits of dirt. And if you have your bit of silver and that rubs around on your peg, it's going to scratch. So one way is protecting the silver then. Put a cloth over your peg. Make sure it is nice and clean-ish. Make sure there's no lemon, there's no bits of filings on it. And now you can work on your silver, knowing that the underneath here was nicely protected because of the cloth. Or if you want to work and you don't want to put a cloth on your peg, just get a little bit of masking tape. You can get the masking tape now. You can stick that onto the piece of silver to protect the surface if you're still working on it. You can remove it and so forth. You can even get another sheet, put it onto the other side as well. So you now have protected both sides of the silver. Trim the masking tape off. You effectively now coated both sides of that bit of silver, and you can rub it on your peg. You can still work with it, you can bend it, you can hold it with your pliers, and you've protected the surface. You want to work on it, you want to solder it again, remove the paper, protect the surface. So the three ways we can protect is leave on the plastic coating as long as possible. Use the flux as a barrier when it comes to solder, protects the surface. Once you've done that, you can then apply a masking tape or a plastic film back over the silver whilst you're working on it. Then you can be sure that when you come to polish, you don't have to spend ages with a buff stick going, oh, look at the scratches in this bit of silver, and you're going over and you're having to buff it, and then perhaps it's a beautiful flat surface, but you look and you've got a bit of a ripple where you've buffed it in one area to remove a scratch, but you haven't buffed it evenly across the whole surface, and it looks absolutely awful. Protect the surface right from the start, right up until the moment you go and polish, and I promise you, your pieces will have a much better professional finish, and you'll save time not having to remove marks, not having to remove scratches. When you come to polish, it's going to be a breeze when you come to polish. Use a pre-polish, use a rouge, and you're going to get an absolute fantastic finish. So think about what you're doing right from the very start. Take precautions. You'll thank me for that in the long run. So there we go. Don't forget, please subscribe if you haven't done already. Don't forget, subscribe and smash that little bell icon if you want to be notified when films go live on our YouTube channel. Please give this film a thumbs up, like it, and share it with your friends. Really do appreciate it. Until the next film, my name's Andrew Berry for At The Benches YouTube channel. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.